Welcome to Corrective Consciousness, episode 207, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. I'm your host, vysethebold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And Dracologist.
And we are going to have a divisive episode here.
In that it literally divides one Sega installment from another Sega installment.
That's for sure. Actually, we are going to continue our coverage on Sega's history, and we were actually in the post console era, as it were. We were in the PS2, GameCube, and OG Xbox era when we had left, but we'll pick up on Sega's endeavors after that. There's just so much to talk about, but we wanted to take an episode to give the due to Joel Schumacher, actually, because unfortunately he passed away last week at the age of 80. A good long life, I would say, but his style and output were certainly unique. He had a lot of good stuff and a lot of divisive stuff, and a lot of stuff that people hated. So, like, he had all kinds of things, but he was very talented in certain ways. I actually think his cinematography was really good, and his costuming and his and the ways that he did the set design during his productions were always idiosyncratic and unusual. So, what would you say about Joel Schumacher? I mean, this was kind of your idea to have this episode, so I figured you had something to say here.
Well, I mean, one thing I want to point out is when you hear the name Joel Schumacher, odds are the first thing you probably think of is Batman and Robin or Batman Forever. Yeah, his two Batman movies. And sure enough, like every news article I saw that said that he passed away,
Batman
it was
and
like
Robin
Joel
director,
Schumacher, the Batman and Robin guy, like IO9.
And they didn't even mention Batman Forever, which was actually critically acclaimed at the time. Like, people liked Batman Forever at the time.
I mean, and even like IO9 had a headline that like Joe Schumacher, the guy who gave us the bat nibbles, like, fuck you IO9, freaking hack. But Joel Schumacher's made like a whole bunch of cool stuff though. I haven't seen all of his work. Like I have not seen his Phantom of the Opera, for example. I heard that was one of the more divisive ones actually. But of the stuff of his,
quite a few people like that one actually.
Would I? Okay.
Quite a few people like it.
The stuff he's made that I have seen, the two Batman movies, of course, but also The Lost Boys and Falling Down. Some of the headlines will mention, oh yeah, he also did The Lost Boys, and both of those movies are freaking excellent.
Everybody loves The Lost Boys. I mean, that is an iconic 80s movie.
It's funny because it pretty much holds up. But it also feels very 80s with just like the
well,
aesthetic.
That's kind of why it holds up.
It's like a time capsule instead of like trying to be contemporary.
So I mean, just like I said with idiosyncratic, production, it became a signifier of its time, kind of like Karate Kid. Karate Kid was not trying to be an 80s movie, but it's
so 80s it hurts.
It's one of the most 80s movies you could watch. If I wanted to show my future children, what the 80s was like, I would show them Karate Kid because it's a realistic depiction of the 80s and what it was. I mean,
and it has a montage which makes it an 80s movie.
Yeah, I mean, what that movie did. I'm talking about Karate Kid here, but the same kind of thing goes with the Lost Boys. Is that you took a genre that was steeped in kind of like a almost like a I would say like a tradition. So you had kung fu movies, kung fu and karate films.
Karate Kid is both, ironically.
Yeah. Well, and Kung Fu Kid, yeah.
The other Karate Kid.
But what I mean is martial arts movies from the 70s, a lot of them took place in, like, an older era. They didn't take place
That
in,
is true.
in
Yeah,
current
they weren't
day.
modern day movies that happens to be wherever
Like
they were filmed, like
Drunken
off in
Master,
China.
for instance. Drunken Master is a really good early kung fu, Hong Kong kung fu film, right?
Yeah.
So Jackie Chan's like first big hit, and that movie takes.
Yeah.
Drunken Master, exactly. Is exactly
the first one, The Legend of the
one.
Drunken Master, was the other one.
Oh, those were great.
No, both of them are great, but
yeah, and in very different ways too.
Yeah. But the first one takes place in a pre-industrial revolution era, and a lot of movies like that. 36 Chambers of Shaolin was one of our favorites, right? So that one's really good. So you have like all this lineage. You have Bruce Lee that kind of helped modernize. He did help modernize and westernize the martial arts film. So you have Karate Kid after that, which was made by the same director as Rocky, right? And so what he's doing is he's taking a genre, the martial arts film, and making a contemporary one. So he wants to show all kinds of things that are happening at that moment to make sure that people are understanding. No, this is a martial arts film for the new age. It's something that's happening right now. So he shows lots of things like school dances and arcades, right? There's a big scene at the arcade, movie theaters and stuff like that, and lots of 80s culture and bully fights and all that kind of crap.
It's kind of like what West Side Story did to Romeo and Juliet, which is 500 years old. Again, school dancing, gang wars instead of like random people who side with this noble family instead of that noble family.
So in the same way, Joel Schumacher's Lost Boys is taking the vampire genre, which doesn't have at that point had never had really many modern stories told in
not so much.
Vampires.
Everything had to be in like the very early 19th century, I think.
Late 1800s, early 1900s, when Bram Stoker's Dracula was written, is basically when all the vampire movies take place. They all take place in that turn of the century time. When film was becoming when movies were becoming new things, that kind of
actually,
thing.
By the way, speaking of that kind of thing, I think it's worth mentioning that even the original book Dracula was very modern for its time. It was pointing out all sorts of then modern amenities. Like there was one line in not a movie line, but one line in the book that just cracked me up, just because you know how when you hear a line that dates itself because it was modern at the time, like in The Karate Kid, hey, come on, man, it's the 80s, we can do what we want. It's like, oh geez, that's not the 80s anymore.
Well, I think even the context, which you forgot, is even more important there. He was letting his girlfriend drive, and he said, "Hey, it's the '80s."
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, it's so not modern by today's standards. But like, look at this. But like in the original Dracula novel, there was something like it had all this new technology, very 19th century. It just cracked me up.
In fact, one of the things that Bram Stoker's Dracula was very notable in doing was it even had characters. It was told from multiple perspectives, and it was like a lot of them was based on found like recordings.
What, Dracula?
So in Dracula, there were several letters that were part of the story, like written from the perspective of several of the characters.
Yeah, it's an epistolary novel. Dracula is a found footage, the book.
Yeah, but one more than a couple were wax cylinder recordings. Which was
quite modern at the time.
Which was modern at the time. So yeah, they even had whatever new technology was going on.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, the dictaphone.
So like part of what was going on in that book was the modern age was fighting like an ancient myth, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, what I was trying to say is, vampire movies were all steeped in Bela Lugosi, 1930s Dracula. And everything else had really been our resident
What does Dracologist know about Bela Lugosi's accent?
No.
I don't drink water. But
I also don't drink wine.
Let's shoot this fucker.
It took me a second.
It's Bella.
Yeah. No one gives two shits for Bella.
Yeah. But boy, do I love Ed Wood. But anyway, I really want to emphasize that, like the Hammer films are all kind of like, color, sequels. And, they're unofficial, but they're color sequels to that era. And
not only were they color, they were like very color. Like that was the reddest blood I've ever seen.
Yeah, and they were like during the exploitation era too, so there was lots of blood and violence in them. And those were the Christopher Lee, Dracula movies. So.
And Peter Cushing, Grand Moff Tarkin as Abraham Van Helsing.
Exactly. So you could, who were both in Star Wars movies actually. Christopher Lee.
Oh yeah, that was a nod. Yeah, Christopher Lee was called Count. Like they were pretty on the nose.
Yeah. But what I was going to say is all of those were steeped in that era of vampire movies. They really hadn't graduated past. That turn of the century period.
There was two big vampire. There was two big vampire movies: Dracula and Nosferatu.
Well, Nosferatu was a knockoff of Dracula. It was Dracula in everything but name, and all the characters had their names changed, but it was a ripoff. It's very true.
Silent movie as well.
Yeah, that's true, and one of the most still watched silent films.
I think it's the only. I mean, like you can kind of count Mel Brooks's silent movie, but I think it's the only like true silent movie I've ever actually seen.
I've seen Metropolis, A Man with a Movie Camera, I've seen quite a few, but Nosferatu is in the short list of like movies that anybody would suggest to you if you wanted to check out a silent film that wasn't a comedy, Charlie Chaplin. Who's the other guy? The other guy who did all the stunts.
I know who you mean, but I can't think of the name.
Yeah, Johnny Knoxville and Jackie Chan both.
Both of those were silent movie huge stars.
No, they always cite. What's his name? Who did all the
it's driving me
stunts.
crazy. Like I want to say it's a Beastling, like Butch or whatever.
No, I absolutely. I forget. But anyway, I forget who it was. But
like Bud somebody.
Yeah, I just always.
This
forget.
is gonna kill me. I'm just gonna try googling it. But go on.
Yeah. But what I was going to say is Lost Boys was just like that. It was just like Karate Kid was trying to do in that they wanted to make it 80s vampire movie, and that was kind of a new concept. And you had like all these pretty. It was kind of the first time you ever really saw pretty boys as vampires too. Like Kiefer Sutherland was a good looking dude, and still is a good looking.
And he really rocked that like 80s like cool high school kid. He was like in Stranger Things like 2,
Billy
the
Idol.
asshole older brother. Like it's basically Kiefer Sutherland.
He looks like Billy Idol, which I don't think is an accident. Billy Idol was extremely popular when this movie came out. So
you're dead meat, kid. I love that line. What a scary thing to hear from a guy like that. What?
Billy Idol is one fucking legend.
Yeah, I saw him in concert. Actually, he's still really good. He still looks the same too.
Almost, but yeah, I can see
what I was saying is he's extremely well preserved for an '80s.
Yeah.
Yes.
For an '80s star. Let's just put it that way. But what I was going to say is the two Coreys are in it, who were very popular at the time.
Corey Feldman and Corey Haim.
And Corey Feldman, yeah. And it was just one of those things. It had comedic elements too, so like there was something for everybody in the Lost Boys. It's just one of those things.
Okay, I finally found it. The not Charlie Chaplin guy, Buster Keaton.
Buster Keaton, yeah, that was.
I knew it was some kind
nuts.
of BU something, yeah.
That was driving me nuts. Yeah. But like Buster Keaton was the kind of guy who was just like, I might die while I do this, but fuck it.
Yeah, he was the guy who did that old gag where like the wall of the house falls on him and like he's standing in an area where like the window falls over him. So like
he very clearly would have been flattened and killed.
Yeah, like I mean they obviously set it up
right spot.
so they knew where it's supposed to fall. But like if anything had gone wrong, he absolutely would have died.
He was known for jumping over trains, doing crazy stuff like that. Jackie Chan and Johnny Knoxville.
Oh, Jackie Chan fucked himself up royally.
From Jackass, cite him as their inspiration. So, but yeah, he was the first guy to be kind of doing that kind of stuff. But anyway, back to Joel Schumacher. Lost Boys was like endemic of those kinds of the kinds of movies you would see later. Like I would have a hard time believing that Interview with a Vampire, which is another pretty boy vampire movie that came out later, would happen without that, or Twilight.
Well, I mean that was an interpretation of a book, though.
Yeah, but like the style,
the style perhaps
so influential. Buffy the Vampire Slayer wouldn't have happened without the Lost Boys. We absolutely
that was a '90s modern interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, and that was
especially you know what always gets me.
If you watch like the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie, it's very much campy,
with the greatest death sequence ever put to film
with what's his name? Paul Rubens, yeah.
But regarding the TV show though, even like the push to the 90s, do you remember how the music went for the TV show?
Oh,
it starts with like an organ playing some like spooky music, and then it like goes into like a wailing, like a thrashing like guitar to make it like new and contemporary with the same tune. It was great.
I also should mention that Joel Schumacher was a writer for The Wiz.
Yeah, I'd heard about that. That's wild.
Nobody beats me, Justin.
Nobody beats me. What a weird fucking joke that like.
It's very esoteric.
You don't get anymore unless you were there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like you would need to know that was a real chain of electronic stores in New York City. It's like making a Dwayne Reed joke. Like it's just like what are you even talking about?
I'm the Wiz, Jerry. Nobody beats me. What?
And he wasn't even a real mascot. They just kind of made him up for that episode,
Yeah, there wasn't the Wiz. We're just called that.
I am the Wiz. But yeah, the Wiz that we're talking about is of course the modernization of
the Wizard of Oz.
The Wizard of Oz with African American leads.
Michael Jackson as I think the Scarecrow.
The Scarecrow, yeah, he was like one of the main
I've seen that one. That was a good one.
Yeah, Diana Ross is Dorothy.
Nice.
Let me see here. Nipsey Russell, Ted Ross, Lena Horne, and Richard Pryor. I forgot Richard Pryor.
Wow. How the hell did I forget that?
Yeah,
he's huge.
And so this is kind of
one of the most terrifying sequences in the what I ever.
Oh, when they get to the Wiz, when I don't know the witch when they're gonna like kill them all.
Don't they like flush her down the toilet?
No, the one that when they start entering the what was
Emerald
that?
City?
No, like metro station.
Okay.
Because it's like it start as that like guy start growing those two like puppet things, and there's a sequence where Dorothy is chased by the concrete pillars of the metro stations.
That sucks.
Oh wow. But what I'm trying to get at is like there was always a campiness to Joel Schumacher's style. He was just into camp. So like a lot of his movies.
Yeah, the grandfather in the Lost Boys, like the best character in the movie.
Yeah, you always have these characters that have like an element of campiness to it, and the Wiz was extremely campy, and and the Lost Boys definitely has a camp factor to it.
The Lost Boys is not like you don't picture as a camp movie, but it has its moments.
But he was also very very popular for St. Elmo's Fire. That's probably his other big movie from this era.
What I currently read from it is that he made Falling Down, which was also the big.
Yeah, and Falling Down was like that movie was just like zero camp. It was just fucked up with Michael Douglas, falling down.
It's the very first angry white man movie. if I could like that kind of trope, you know what I mean?
Well, it's interesting though because the movie opens with him being like we know it's petty bullshit. Like, you know how the movie Office Space opens with little things that are just pissing you off?
Traffic is like the main problem.
Yeah, but like it's a comedy movie. You're like, oh man, yeah, I know that shit. That pisses me off. Falling Down is the same opening, except he gets legitimately mad and starts like taking it out on other people.
It escalates. Let's just say that.
That's because when you first see the movie, you're like, I don't know if I approve of his methods, but I totally get it. But by the end of the movie, like,
you are not on his side.
He's obviously the bad guy. Yeah.
The twist at the end, you go, oh man.
Well, you don't even need the twist. Like, he's clearly going on a fucking rampage.
I mean, he gets a hold of a bazooka at one point, right? Or a rocket launcher.
Yeah, and he can't fire it, and some little kid's like, you gotta pull the back end. Like, how do you know this? I watch movies. Okay, I guess. Thanks, kid.
The concept is that he's like, you empathize, but at the same time you understand that he is not the good guy.
Well, yeah, you're not supposed to do that.
Well,
yeah,
at first it's kind of like a fantasy wish fulfillment kind of movie, because you're like, oh, I wish I could just like destroy everything that like annoyed me. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but then you're like, oh wait, that's bad, and like I feel bad for thinking that. Like, you know what got me was the scene in the not McDonald's, where he wanted something off of the breakfast menu, and it's like a minute past the time where they stopped serving it. That is one thing where like I don't side with what Michael Douglas did, but like,
you understand
fuck you, guy. It's right behind you. Just serve him the fucking thing you're gonna throw out. But like, what's great is like, you know, he pulls out a fucking gun. He like accidentally fires it because it had a more sensitive trigger than he thought. So he's like, don't worry, customers of this restaurant. I'm not here for any of you. You don't have to worry. And he just fires like 3 shots by pure accident, scares the shit out of everybody, including himself. He like apologizes for firing the gun. But I love that after that whole thing is over, where he talks back to the restaurant manager guy. He's like, Rick, I feel that now I can call you Rick after all we've been through together. It's like the most like uncomfortable but like darkly humorous like line in the whole movie.
Yeah. And then one of his movies after that, this one was actually once we got to the 90s, that Falling Down was early 90s, right? That was like 91, 92?
I don't remember the date. All I know is that a friend of ours showed it to me in college.
93, okay.
It was 3?
So
okay.
the very next year after that actually was a movie I saw in the theater, The Client. Did you guys ever see The Client?
No, I don't know anything about that one.
Nope.
Okay. So this one is pretty popular, one of his at the time. It was with Tommy Lee Jones and Susan Sarandon.
Wow.
What it is two boys are out like playing by a river. Two like poor boys are out playing by a river, and they are present while somebody an important person ends up committing suicide. But because of the circumstances, it made it look like the boys did it. Killed the guy, but you obviously know who it is. But all the evidence.
So it's like My Cousin Vinny.
Yes.
Like the viewer knows everything, but none of the characters in the movie do.
Correct. So the movie ends up Susan Sarandon is their lawyer, and she has to believe in them because like she doesn't know for sure that the boys didn't do it. She just believes in them, that kind of thing. And because of the way the circumstances happened, they were trying to save the guy from exhaust inhalation because he was trying to kill himself via that. But so they have their fingerprints all over because they were trying to save the guy.
Oh, okay.
And but then he ends up like shooting himself. To end it all. And but their DNA's all over the place. And and one of the boys is like traumatized and can't speak because of it because he's younger.
No kidding, yeah.
And the other one is kind of just like left with being tortured by the fact that all these police believe that he did it. So
yeah,
it was a really good thriller, and I actually really liked this movie. And then it eventually
that really does sound like My Cousin Vinny, where it's like a car that matches theirs exactly and showed up at the same time they did.
He took that tuna man.
A guy just kills the store clerk of the store they were just at. It's like that's just a terrible coincidence.
This actually became a TV series later on as well. About basically the lawyer character goes on and has it wasn't played by Susan Sarandon, but still same kind of thing. So I actually really like this movie. It's not very campy. It has some funny moments just because it has some levity in it, but it's a really good thriller.
It's like Falling Down. There are a couple of chuckle moments, but it's not a comedy, and it's not trying to be.
I
think,
and then
having some levity in a drama or thriller is not a bad thing, I would say.
Oh no, not at all.
Well, no, I mean this has been going on for hundreds of years. Like Shakespeare will just bring his plays to a screeching halt and have like a drunken porter come out and have like a small scene, and then back to the real stuff. It's like, what was that? It's like to keep the audience from being bummed out.
Yeah. And then later on, that very next year. So what had happened, to refresh people's memory, is that Tim Burton had basically reinvented the superhero movie genre. In fact, we wouldn't have the superhero movies that we have today if it weren't for what Tim Burton did on the '89 Batman movie.
Yeah, and remember, this is coming off of the Adam West Batman TV show. Like, 89 Batman was fucking hardcore.
We did have some success in the Superman movies, the Christopher Reeve Superman movies. But,
that is true, but they were very like, remember kids, stay in school, like that kind of Superman.
Yeah, and they got dumber and dumber as time went on.
Even the first one, the special effects weren't spectacular, and Batman, the opening scene is he just beats the shit out of people and like creates the Joker.
Yeah, so it was a lot darker, and it certainly had its camp moments in the '89 Batman, but it took itself a lot way more seriously than anything else, and it also helped define that gothic imagery that everybody knows Tim Burton for, and also, like, a lot of his partnerships with, like, Michael Keaton. This was his second movie with him. He was,
Mr.
Mom. Well, no, Beetlejuice was his first movie.
The second Tim Burton movie, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you were right. He took a comedic actor and made him into a superhero.
Like when everybody was complaining about Heath Ledger being the Joker, it's like, do you know who Michael Keaton was before Batman? Like, that worked.
That's why I think Robert Pattinson is actually going to do a fantastic job. I think he's going to
don't
really
you know
good.
He was in Twilight? Like, don't you know?
I don't care.
Everybody whines about every actor because of some.
In the White House. I mean, he's in a ton of other stuff.
Well, you know what killed me was Ben Affleck being Batman because of
Daredevil,
like a 15-year-old movie which wasn't even bad. What's your problem?
People liked Daredevil at the time. I mean, like...
But they were bitching about Daredevil when it came to him being Batman. It's like, number one, that was forever ago. Number two, what was your problem?
Look, man, it got a sequel. I mean, there was Elektra wasn't... It was one of the worst...
That was not good.
worst movies I've ever seen. But, like, but my point being that Tim Burton was huge. And then Batman Returns was his sequel, and it was just as big. Maybe even bigger, because like
that got sillier though. As fucked up as Penguin was, it got like wacky.
It did, but it was incredibly popular and everybody loved it at the time.
And it still had the dark aesthetic and lots of dark moments, like Catwoman's creation and the end of the movie.
Almost the entire movie is a Penguin Catwoman movie. It's not really much of a Batman movie because there's not much going on there.
Not only that, but that also kickstarted the trend, which Joel Schumacher continued, which was Batman movies having two villains each time.
Well, they escalated
counts
it.
For Batman and Robin.
Actually, they escalated it. They kind of, like, as time went on, they added characters every time. You know what I mean? So,
well, that's true. Yeah, they had Robin and Batman Forever, then they had Batgirl and Batman and Robin. Yeah,
so, and they had Bane, Poison
That's
Ivy.
what I'm saying. Like, I say two villains per movie. I guess Bane's a third, but not really.
Not
He's
really.
A henchman in that movie.
Yeah. But what I was going to say is Batman Forever, when it came out, he doubled down on what he thought people liked about Batman and Robin and the original Batman Tim Burton movie, which was the campy aspects of it. He more doubled down on the campy aspects of that, and also even heightened it to around the levels of the 60s Batman show.
Well, that's the thing I think a lot of people didn't expect. They were expecting I mean, Joel Schumacher is obviously not Tim Burton, but they were expecting a third Tim Burton style movie, and there was a lot of 60s Batman stuff, but I think a lot of the people who are watching the Batman movies, like, well, at least the people who are our age, may not have been very familiar with the 60s Batman stuff. So, like, Jim Carrey as the Riddler, well, this was kind of funny, because Jim Carrey as the Riddler, like,
he also had a very homoerotic, performance as the joke, as the Riddler too.
Yeah, but like not even that. Like, he's supposed to be like a nod to Frank Gorshin's Riddler, but the thing is, I actually felt that Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face was a better Frank Gorshin than Jim Carrey, because Jim Carrey wasn't doing Frank Gorshin. He was doing Jim Carrey. Like, Frank Gorshin's a wacky character, Jim Carrey's a wacky character. Just do your thing, be the Riddler. But Tommy Lee Jones felt more like the Riddler, except Two-Face doesn't tell riddles.
Well, there was some problems on there in that like Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey didn't get along at all.
Oh, really?
And yeah, Tommy Lee Jones hated Jim Carrey because this was early in Jim Carrey's career where he was still extremely over the top.
Yeah, like, was he?
Well,
like
this
Ace
is Ace Ventura 1, and The Mask.
That was like full on obnoxious. Yeah.
I think this was post. When did The Mask happen? Was this right around the same time?
I don't know the years.
But anyway, it was one of those situations where Tommy Lee Jones kind of overacted on his end when he normally really isn't an overactor.
Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones is never like that.
Yeah, this is like his campiest performance that I ever remember.
Like, literally jumping up and down and clapping his hands.
The only thing that comes close is his performance in Under Siege, and even it doesn't even come close.
Well, I mean, nothing can come close. He was a cartoon character in this.
Yeah, and I think like at the time, people forget this, but Batman Forever was well received. Fans liked it, and
yeah, I liked it all right.
And reviewers liked it. But it was certainly a different tone. And Val Kilmer was Batman.
It was like what people refer to as the neon Gotham.
Yeah, it was extremely 90s in that respect. It was that was that black light kind of.
Yeah, with that one gang where they're like wearing like the glow tubes and the black light stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So like it always reminded me of the laser tag place that I went to as a kid. You know what I mean?
Same. Yeah, I had one of those as a kid. Yeah, like kind of nearby. It was
black lights on everything, like neon green, neon orange, purple everywhere.
Yeah,
you know, neon purple. So like that was a real big thing in the 90s, that aesthetic, at least for a few years, and that's what Batman Forever looks like, and it also has a lot of early CG in it, and it also
with the box that Edward Nygma uses.
Yeah, and I mean, Batman was still really big at this time too, because you also had the Batman animated series was still going on.
Oh, the toys were endless,
and this was also. I was gonna say, it's good that you brought this up. Joel Schumacher was approached. I think part of the reason why Tim Burton didn't want to do third movie, he was making tons of money off of these, and he had two successful movies. Like they are iconic. I mean, like Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman is extremely iconic.
She fucking nailed it.
Yeah, and Danny DeVito as the Penguin is extremely iconic. So like, there's no reason why those movies couldn't continue on if it weren't for outside factors. And what had happened was, like, Tim Burton didn't want to make it into a toy factory, and they basically the executives were like, okay, well, we need somebody to direct these movies that wants to make this into a franchise and make toys off of everything.
And I actually remember, I think it was the commentary for Batman and Robin, the commentary track, where Joel, like, you feel bad because Joel Schumacher's basically like apologizing like the whole commentary
because
track.
Because these movies have been shat on in retrospect.
But there was this one part that he mentioned. I don't remember what part of the movie, but he had mentioned that he had a design for something, maybe the Batmobile or whatever, I don't remember. But he said that the people who were looking over the design wanted him to make it more toyetic.
Wait,
yeah,
wait.
Exactly.
I never even heard that word in my life at that time.
Wait,
So,
isn't that
there you
the
go.
moment when H.R. Geiger designed the Batmobile?
I think the
Sorry,
I
you
don't
gotta.
know.
I think so. I think you might be right because either in Batman Forever, in Batman and Robin and Batman Forever, like the Batmobile got progressively more lights on it, like it became like neon-y, and like that's so against what Batman is. Like Batman's supposed to be a
He's
creature of the
fucking
night.
bat.
He's
He
stealth.
blends with the night.
He's like he's supposed to be a ninja.
And
Like you know, he's-
good ninja and investigator.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
supposed to be a detective ninja in a bat suit. So, but anyway, I mean,
Well,
I mean,
actually,
Tim
real
Burton's
quick,
Batman also has like an afterburner on the back, so I can't really talk about that.
No, one thing I should mention, actually, just speaking of the Batmobile, you may have heard on like IMDb trivia, for the Christopher Nolan Batman movie, The Dark Knight, with the Joker.
Oh yeah,
You know the opening heist scene where everybody's wearing clown masks?
Sure.
But then the real Joker, like you may have seen on the trivia page, the mask the real Joker is wearing is a callback to the 60s Batman show when he's wearing that mask when he's singing Pagliacci on the play. Like, have you seen that little factoid?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because, like, yeah, I've seen that episode, and it's like, oh, yeah. Well, here's something I haven't seen mentioned. I mean, maybe it's on IMDb, but I haven't seen people talking about it. Do you remember that scene in Batman Forever where the Riddler finds out that Bruce Wayne is Batman?
Yeah.
And he goes into the Batcave, and he's like, oh, shit, like, I'm in the Batcave. And, like, you know how he, like, throws, like, 1,000 bombs at the Batmobile?
Mm-hmm.
That is episode 1 of the 60s Batman show.
Oh wow.
Like,
yeah,
like because like every Batman episode is a two-parter.
Mm-hmm.
So episodes 1 and 2 were the Riddler. He was the first villain in that show, and he doesn't go into the Batcave, but he splits Batman and Robin up when they're looking for him, and when they're not around, he sneaks into where the Batmobile's parked, just like it's just out on the street, because like Batman's loved by the cops in that show, so he just fucking parks it outside. But like he just goes there and he blows up the Batmobile. It was like, for a goofy show like that was kind of a hardcore thing to do.
So what's interesting about that is he was making all these references to a TV show that wasn't available at the time. So like I have to reiterate that this was in the 90s.
Yeah.
Like, we are used to having every piece of media available to us on demand. Like, you could get the 60s Batman no problem right now. You can watch it on demand. You can see it on TV.
And it was forever before that was possible.
You can watch it on Blu-ray now, too. In an immaculate collection. And
that only came out like a few years ago. The movie used to be the only thing you could get for like decades.
So he was going off of all these references, and nobody knew what the hell he was referencing, or if that they were even references.
Well, that was the thing. Like, remember toward the end of the movie where they're underwater or near underwater, and Robin goes, "Holy rusted metal, Batman!"
Yeah, everybody knew that
because the metal's rusted over and full of holes. Like, that's something like my dad would have chuckled at, and I was like, "What was that?"
I chuckled at it at the time because that was.
I might have seen a couple of episodes of the show, but I don't think I knew that the holy whatever Batman was like a trope.
Yeah,
so, like,
I did at the time. I mean, that was a pop culture reference. I mean, it's like no shit Bucky, you know, people said no shit Bucky for a long time.
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, you don't know no shit Bucky?
I've never heard of that.
So when somebody says something that's very obvious, you respond no shit
Sherlock,
or no shit Sherlock. But some people say no shit Bucky because, like, Captain America.
His little buddy Bucky.
Bucky was his Robin, essentially. Used to point out things, and Captain America is just like, I know, Bucky, I'm looking right at it. He would actually say that in the comics.
That's great.
But then people started saying no shit, Bucky.
Because that's kind of like Speedwagon in JoJo Part 1. Like, my God, he broke that giant boulder with his just one finger.
Yeah,
we all saw it, buddy.
Here. We're all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, none of them call that out, but it's like, as the reader, like, yes, I know.
Yeah, Captain Obvious, exactly.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say is, and Jim Carrey was extremely popular at this time. This was right before he did Cable Guy, which made him like the highest paid actor of all time at the time.
Where he like gets into a fight at fucking Medieval Times in New Jersey, which I've been to.
Yeah, I've been to that one. Yeah,
so weird.
But what I was gonna say is, Val Kilmer was actually a pretty decent Batman. I thought.
Yeah, he was all right. I think that was the first thing like I knew of him in. Like I've only heard of Val Kilmer like as Batman.
Top Gun's the big thing.
I still haven't seen Top Gun, but if you look at like various other movies he's been in, he just kills it every time. He's so good.
He's really good. I mean, he has a lot
Tombstone, what a fucking monster.
He's the best Doc Holliday of all time.
He is
so
the
good.
best.
Tombstone's great. Tombstone's like one of my favorite movies of all time. It's so
like
good.
you're pissed drunk. Well, that's why I got 2 guns, one for each of you. Like, oh shit.
When he starts calling people Huckleberry, you know shit's about to go.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh my god. But yeah. What I was gonna say is Batman Forever, for all of its flaws, looking back on it, I don't particularly like watching it in hindsight, but at the time people did like it, and it's hard to put yourself in that context because it's just not what we want right now.
And honestly, I don't think Batman and Robin is that bad. I really don't. Like, Bane is the worst. Like, there's no redeeming Bane at all. But like, Poison Ivy was fine. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, the thing was, like, again, like I said about how Tommy Lee Jones was a better Frank Gorshin than Jim Carrey, because Jim Carrey was just being Jim Carrey. Like, Arnold wasn't a very good Mr. Freeze. He was just Arnold Schwarzenegger, who happens to be wearing a Mr. Freeze costume. You're the guy who does one-liners in your action movie, right? How about you do only one-liners in the entire movie? Like, I get it. It's just not like a Batman villain.
Well, the problem is with Batman and Robin. Batman and Robin is all of the things that we pointed out about Batman Forever that make it like tough to stomach nowadays.
Yeah, not aged so well.
But amped up to 11.
They crank it up. And Dracologist, what were you saying, by the way?
Mr. Freeze character was not that jokey type. He was very, very serious.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was just like a flat line in the '60s show. Like, I'm Mr. Freeze. I will stop people with my freeze gun. Like, there was nothing to him. Like, before the '90s animated show, like, he was like just unremarkable.
He was a joke. He was a man in a cold suit with a fishbowl on his head with a freeze gun. That's all he was.
The '90s TV show gave him character, and then Joel Schumacher had Arnold Schwarzenegger play Arnold Schwarzenegger.
So Paul Dini and Bruce Timm, made this amazing Batman animated series where they reinvented a bunch of those characters, and Mr. Freeze ends up being one of the best tragic characters of all supervillains of all time. So much so that it was another one of those characters that was so good, and in characterizations that they wrote him back into the comic with that backstory. They retconned him because the old version is nothing. He's just a movie.
It's literally just like villain of the week, like a guy with a freeze gun. Like,
so when they made Arnold Schwarzenegger this version of Mr. Freeze, they made him like he has the same backstory as the animated.
Yeah, the tragic backstory, but he's a goof the whole movie.
Yeah, he's just saying one-liners the whole time. He's doing the Arnold Schwarzenegger thing, and
sometimes the one-liners are like
cool party.
Cool party is my favorite one because that's so much.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age.
That's not even a pun. That's just like, let me find a way to talk about Ike. But Cool Party is my favorite because that barely counts.
But
chill out, bird boy.
You took a great characterization, a great version of a character, and just like shat all over it. You also have George Clooney as the new Batman in this. For one reason or another, Val Kilmer didn't return.
Hello, Freeze. I'm Batman.
He has no. He adds nothing as
he
Batman
doesn't have like the
or
George Clooney charm. It's just like, I guess I'm a Batman character this time.
I mean, Chris O'Donnell is back as Robin. And you have at least the big problem that this movie has. This is the first one that was kind of like this. They had way too many new characters that barely got any screen time.
Yeah, 3 villains, and Bane doesn't talk. He's just like a Frankenstein monster.
And a new ally too. A new,
and
Alicia
Batgirl.
Silverstone is Batgirl, and a weird version of Batgirl as Alfred's niece.
Alfred gets the same disease that Freeze's wife does, so they're able to cure both of them.
Yeah.
Oh no! Doesn't Arnold have to sacrifice his wife for some reason?
No. I think George Clooney cures her. By the end,
he does cure her. Does he?
Movie, I think that's how it works. Yeah, but anyway, Bane's in it in the worst version of Bane possible. So Bane is supposed to be
Yeah.
one of Batman's most diabolical villains.
Bane is a character.
Bane, other than the Joker, Bane is Batman's greatest villain. And
The man who broke the bat.
looking back at all at Ra's al Ghul, Bane, and Joker are Batman's big villains. And Bane in this is a mook. A mook.
Yeah, Poison Ivy's mook, which
a mute
Poison Ivy
mook.
wouldn't even want him around.
He's also mute. Bane is.
Well, he says Bane.
Oh, come on. He's Hodor.
Like I said, he's a Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah, exactly. Bane is supposed to be diabolical, and the reason why Bane is so frightening is because he's super intimidating physically, but he's also as smart as Batman. And
also, by the way, speaking of being super intimidating physically, like even at the time in theaters, the Bane
it looked like
giant
shit.
on Venom suit did not look good.
It looked like shit. So anyway, this is the movie that killed off superhero movies for a while. They didn't come back as a mainstream thing. There were some Marvel adaptations in between. You have Men in Black, which a lot of people don't realize is a comic book.
Yeah, that's kind of a comic
yeah,
book. But Batman himself didn't come back until Nolan. What was that, 2012 or 2011?
Yeah. But
it was a long time.
What I was going to say is superhero movies didn't come back around until X-Men. Right, Bryan Singer's
yeah.
X-Men.
And X-Men was another one of those movies where, like, let's make this super serious. Like, don't confuse this with the previous movies you may have remembered.
And later, looking back on it, it's a lot campier than you remember.
It is, but, like, the opening was, like, the fucking Holocaust.
Yeah, I mean, and you also have Sam Raimi's Spider-Man right after that. So, anyway, what I was going to say is this movie went too far in that direction, in that camp direction, and people didn't appreciate it for it was. It's actually a lot more watchable now as a camp movie.
I still say it's not as bad as people say it is, but the bad things are quite bad.
I mean, you can watch it as a camp movie, just kind of like you watch Spider-Man 3 as a camp movie.
I like watching Arnold Schwarzenegger play as Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's just the Bane that I can't get past.
Bane's awful. I mean, Poison Ivy's not even very good, if you ask me. I think the whole movie's weak. And there's very bad characterization, very bad character development. It's a very goofy kids movie. In a series that wasn't conceived that way, and like you said, you could spot where all the toys are. Like the Batman and Robin have ice skates. Like they have, yeah. Like they play hockey with the diamond.
Sure, yeah. Freeze's henchmen are all hockey players, I guess.
Yeah. It's
because why not?
It's a goofy.
That's another callback to the '60s show, by the way, like the themed henchmen.
Yeah, but after that, Joel Schumacher also has some other hits and well-known movies. I want to get off of this tangent because he's well known for it because it sticks out like a sore thumb. Unfortunately, Batman and Robin just it's also been a punching bag on the internet since the very early days of the internet.
Yeah, like even, I was recently playing Lego Batman 3, and Mr. Freeze shows up like twice in the entire game, like really briefly, but when he does, he has that that bad Schwarzenegger accent, like rah rah, but you're like, I know what that's a reference to.
That's funny that they brought that back, and they also have Billy D. Williams as Two-Face in those things too, which is pretty cool. Instead of Tommy Lee Jones, but that is
very clever.
That's pretty cool, including the Lego Batman movie too.
Yeah, that's super clever because that's a callback to, of course, Batman Returns, the Tim Burton movie.
Actually, he was in just Batman.
It was the original.
It was in the original Batman. Billy D. Williams shows up as Harvey Dent for brief moment.
For like a second.
Brief moment, yeah. So anyway, so 8mm is a very Nicolas Cage movie. Have you ever seen 8mm?
Nah. That's the movie that opens with like a montage of a bullet being like made.
No. That one is a
different Nicolas Cage movie.
Different Nicolas Cage movie. So 8mm is a movie that actually has a pretty awesome single shot scene at the very beginning of the movie. But essentially, I think this is it's either this one or Snake Eyes. I don't know. I always get them confused, but yeah, like James Gandolfini's in this. This is a thriller about it's a crime mystery film, and I actually kind of like this one. Some people say that it's not the best, but actually Roger Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars, which is a lot for Roger Ebert for not like a major movie.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think this is one of his like divisive movies, but you can either say it's good or bad. And then Phone Booth is another one that is kind of along.
Yeah, I
those
forgot
lines,
that was him. Yeah.
Which that movie has its fans too. But also he has some dreck out there. Like the number 23 is an awful movie. You ever see the number
Jim
23?
Carrey.
The Jim Carrey movie.
Yeah, it's more like a thriller. It's a like a weird thriller. And that's kind of where everything kind of peters out, because I don't know his movies after that, and as he was getting older and older, I'm sure he had less output. But I like him for his early '90s movies and '80s movies. I think that's really where he shined, and he also had some really entertaining stuff in there, especially Lost Boys. Definitely check out Lost Boys and St. Elmo's Fire. Those are probably his highlights for sure. And you guys, anybody else want to say a little bit about Joel before we move on to fan stuff?
I'm
I
not
think I'm tapped
a
out.
big cinema goer, so I can't really say anything else.
Okay, well, fair enough. Can we move on to fan stuff here, Lotus?
Why, sure. So for comments, we open with Dracologist, who had a couple of comments.
Wait, who?
Yeah, I hadn't heard him either, but yeah. So the first comment is for D-Makes. I remember an 8-bit version of StarCraft of all things. As for the boomer shooter trend that's been sweeping the nation of gaming, New Blood has been whacking out of the park with a you mentioned this in Recon, but a medieval Ultra Kill, Gloomwood.
Yeah, those are awesome.
Yeah, so these small games are better because they're games not like AAA live services. And not knowing Bud Spencer and Terrence Hill, guys, you're breaking my heart. Yeah, I know, I didn't grow up with them, I'm sorry.
In retrospect, I would highly recommend looking up, because they just walls, like, you never...
Are those the Slaps and Beans guys?
Like,
yes.
Okay. See, I still don't know why they're famous. I don't even know who they are.
Dracologist has linked me some like movie clips of them. They're quite entertaining.
basic, like,
they've been in like a ton of movies.
Somewhat lighthearted. Like, there are people, like, when someone gets shot down, it's actually the darkest part of the movie, but it's mostly about Bud Spencer and Terrence Hill doing absolute brawl fest, and it's a delight.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of those clips and they're great. And then finally, the Bloodborne-like game that we were trying to think of the title for is Scaffold Shrouded in Sanity. So thank you, and not Shrouded in Sanity, like Shrouded in Sanity. So thank you for that, because that was driving me crazy.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then we have just like The Last of Us, like where the controversy was coming from. Like apparently, like you're saying the game is like default basic, and then they backpedaled on whatever the LGBTQ thing was. I'm gonna have to play the game because I've been actively avoiding spoilers, so I guess I'll find out. But yeah, new Pokemon Snap, you're saying will set the internet on fire. I do not doubt that for a second. And then your last post was about various boss battle themes. So like Saints Row 4, the Zinyak theme, DMC, so the remake of Devil May Cry, the Mundus theme, Zedblade, like Termination, 4U Severance, Blade of Darkness, main boss fight theme, Doom 2016, how did I not think of that, but yeah, Mastermind, Shadow Warrior 2, Warrior by Stan Bush, Serious Sam, Tlaloc boss fight, Axiom Verge, Trace Rising, and Apocalypse Metal Gear Revengeance, and the Undertale, like every boss fight. Yeah, that's a very good point. Living Corpse had a couple of comments. One of them is a quote from me last time where I said, you know how much of a JoJo fan I am, and most JoJo games are mediocre at best. Living Corpse said, as a kaiju fan, we can relate to that. Yep.
Almost always.
For some reason, some things being adapted into video games get treated like rocket science when it's not.
Yeah, I mean, like, if they all were just, Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee, why couldn't they just make that for every single game? Like, that's the one good Godzilla game that I know.
No, instead I want to play as Godzilla moving 1 mile an hour and destroying power generators for, like, the entire game.
Or you want to play as the humans trying to stop Godzilla. Who wants that? Come on.
Well, that's not bad, but as long as you have a Godzilla game already in existence.
Yeah, but when you're a kid, you don't want to play as the humans. You want to play as Godzilla, man. Like, come on.
Yeah.
But, like, I mean, like, King of the Monsters is a great kaiju game. That was made by SNK. Like, just make it a wrestling game, but with buildings. Come on.
Yeah, just whatever. Why not?
Yeah, come on.
And then Living Corpse's other comment was massive. I'm going to read part of this, but it was about Kreia from Knights of the Old Republic. 2 might be an amazing Star Wars movie. She was a Jedi Master and historian who, instead of shunning the teachings of the dark side, used them to balance out her teachings of the light and ask her students tough, morally great questions where there is no right answer. She felt the Jedi teachings were flawed and was trying to prepare students for temptation and how to fight it, as life is not as black and white as Jedi and Sith make it out to be. Her fellow masters hated her teachings and felt she was leading them down the wrong path. I think he said one of her students was like
interesting,
Revan, which is amazing.
Before the whole extended universe was flushed down the toilet because marketing, I think like Luke Skywalker did something similar. Like he juggled the light and the dark side both.
Yeah, and he also like ran like an academy and stuff like that.
Jedi
they alluded to that for a second in The Last Jedi, but whatever. And then School Filmer says, another thing that was pretty cool about the Clubhouse games on the Switch is that there are unlockable Mario-themed cards. Even the Club Nintendo Hanafuda cards are in there. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Another favorite boss theme of mine is the 12 Apostles battle from Tengai Makyo, the Fourth Apocalypse. That track has a very deep bass, so headphones really add to it.
Oh, yeah.
And then finally,
series.
Josh111888 says, if you liked The Last of Us, the first game, then there's no reason to dislike the sequel. Because any nitpick he had with the sequel, he also had the original.
Yeah, it's probably the combat situations get samey. Yeah.
They really did, didn't they?
That's the major thing I've heard. I haven't played the games for myself, so.
So I gotta play the second one, and the DLC of the first. So finally, Fakafan asks for our question: is there a particular type of sound you like more? For example, my friend really likes the sound of those potato cannons. Yeah, I love that. Personally, I like the hum of my computer. So I really do like that Luigi's Mansion Dave & Buster's game when you get a ghost.
Oh, when it knocks. Yeah, that knocks on the side.
I just wanted to
ahead.
say, like a software blob. You're going into I think it was in one of the Goofy animations where he flies into a cloud using his skis and he's making his boom boom sound. Things like other sounds, I like the sound. I do like the.
That is a yes and a half.
The classic rubber ducky squeak, and it's various iterations.
Okay.
And Fakafon mentioned the humming of the. While I'm not interested, I'm not big of a ventilator fan, but I do like an idling diesel engine for some reason. If you put me if I can't sleep, if I could lay next to an idling bus, I would sleep.
Yeah, just that
Yes, it's
yeah, you'll get knocked right out. Yeah.
Yeah,
something deep and droning can pick me, can put me in sleep.
Yeah.
One of my favorite sounds is I like the sounds that micro switches make when you press them. I really like clicky keys for mechanical keyboards, and also American style arcade buttons have that feel. And
I was gonna mention the arcade buttons. Yeah, the kind that offer a little resistance and then click.
What I wanted to ask, something like one of those big print copy machines would have those had very, very soft buttons, make a very satisfying click.
Yeah, I like anything like that. Another pick for me is similar to the potato cannon, but I really love the sound of a shell going into a grenade launcher. In particular in Terminator 2 when Sarah Connor is like,
when he's firing like the tear gas rounds, like
no, towards the end of the movie when they're in the fountain.
So you like the sound of
and
the Thumper, the M79 grenade launcher, that bomb.
Yeah, that thing. Yeah, like every time she puts a new shell in it. Yeah, it's just so satisfying. Love that.
Yeah, I also like a lot of sounds from just classic Doom, just for how like, just like they don't have like a lingering effect. Like when you're on the menu, when you press escape, that like it just kind of hits you.
Oh yeah.
I think like Mage Slayer had really like sounds on you go back and forth.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Speaking of Doom, like which door did you prefer? Which door and lift sounds you preferred?
Oh, do you mean like the whine, like? Yeah, I kind of like the elevator sound that, like when the elevator lands when you finish. That
because in Doom 2 and Doom 1 they had different sound sets. Like in Doom 1 they were more high pitched.
Oh, I don't even know if I noticed.
You probably can look it up. Like what was like the sound discrepancies. Like for example the pistol and the machine gun had like this high pitch and like sort of a muffler sound effect for in Doom 1.
Okay. Huh. Oh, actually, you know what's also really satisfying? Maybe it's because of what you're doing, but the sound's also pretty cool. In Dark Souls, before you riposte, but when you parry, when it goes like
I
love that.
For example.
Like it kind of like shuts off all sounds. Like this is your big chance to just fuck them up.
Two metal blade hitting each other at full force. That's just meaty metal.
Yeah, that's a satisfying one as well.
Meaty metal clang. That's also very satisfying. Or a good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, any
like a hammer
any
on
of those
anvil.
kind of parry things, like starting with first strike or like a Street Fighter 3.
I also like it's a little bit of a bit morbid, but I really like the slashing sound of the scythe in Undying. Yeah.
That's been too long.
That's
I beat that game, but it's been way too long.
Compared to that, that is a very meaty slash sound. Compared to that, what you have like something in Ninja Gaiden, which has this anime slashing sound, which is very anemic.
Yeah, it's more like arcadey
not
in that game.
but very Japanese. Like Japanese sound sets are.
Oh, like the shing sound or something like that.
Yeah, but you would recognize it if you would heard it. What I mean.
I probably would. I could always go back and check. The only thing is, I didn't use it as a weapon. I used it to finish off the bosses because that's mandatory.
What else is there?
Yeah, the two that I said are like my major ones, but I'm sure I have others.
Those are good stuff.
Yeah. I also kind of like the Skype jingle that's played when you call somebody.
do.
Yeah. I also like that too. I like everything that Skype does actually for as far as sound effects go.
Sure.
I actually like that. But I think we're good for this episode. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
probably good.
I'll have to do some research on Bud Spencer and Terrence Hill here.
Yeah, just look up random clips. That's good stuff.
Like some of the movies are actually on YouTube for some reason. Like you can just.
Nice.
Yeah, I know. Like a lot of them seem like they have like complicated rights issues or something, just because of how they might have been localized at the time because they're Italian movies.
It's also small trivia. Bud Spencer was an absolute polymath. Like aside from being an athlete and an actor, he also did a lot of other things.
Huh. Yeah, I think he was a politician,
scientist.
Anyway. Huh. All right. Well, that is the show for this week. We'll have to do some more research on them. Maybe we can have a future episode if we become well versed in the subject.
Yeah, watch our movies.
Yeah. We want to thank all of our fans who contributed questions. Please keep us supplied with awesome topics by submitting questions over your own via the YouTube and SoundCloud pages. And we've had some really good ones lately. Finally, you can please while there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. I'm always so tired during this one. It helps us promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. You can also catch us on Tuesdays for our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, the in-depth look at this week in our lives. Finally, you can friend me as vysethebold on pretty much everything.
And you can follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, or getting in conversations with me and other patrons on Discord, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
And you can find me on Skype, Steam, and on Discord as the Dracologist.
Excellent. Well, we'll catch everybody next time for another episode of Reactive on Tuesday.
Until next time, everyone.
Good night. Night-night.
Bye-bye.